Hello, this is Giovanni. We are working on Bolo version 12. Our project owner are Jason Cohen and Frank Alvarado, and our mentor is Dr. Masu Sajadi. My other teamwork is Jacqueline Castro. So we are going to explain today how to run the Bolo project for the next team. So first, we assume you have a Visual Studio Code installed. I am running this on Mac. You can do the same on Windows. So Visual Studio have the Windows and Mac version, as well as Eclipse or IntelliJ for the API. So we are going to run the front end done in Angular. In Visual Studio Code, we are going to run the API in Java, in IntelliJ or in Eclipse. So first we need to check if you have Node installed. So you go to the Visual Studio Code, or you go to your terminal or command prompt in Windows, and you check if you have Node. So if you have it, you will see the version here. If not, you can install it with the Node package management. So it's npm install, or you can find in Google how to install Node. The other thing you need is the Angular CLI. So for that is ng last version. You need Angular 6 or Angular CLI 6, or I have already 7, but it's okay. So the project is made in Angular 6. So that's for the front end. If you are going to install, you need to do it in the folder of the project. You will see that we will deliver you the project as this. Let me check. So inside Bolo, you will have the Bolo REST API, which is the API, and Bolo Angular client, which is the one for the front end. So in Visual Studio, you load the Bolo Angular client. So you will have in here. You can also do the front end and the back end all in Visual Studio. So you have to set up the Visual Studio Code for Java. But I suggest that you do the front end in Visual Studio Code, and the API in IntelliJ or on Eclipse. So for the API, you can use Eclipse. On Eclipse, you need to install. You go to Help, Eclipse Marketplace, and you need to install Spring Tools, because the API is done in Spring Boot. So if you put here a Spring Tool, so you will see Spring Tool 3. It's okay to install that one, or a Spring Tool 4. I installed the Spring Tool 4. Let me check install. I have a Spring Tool 4. Or you can use IntelliJ. I prefer IntelliJ, but let me show you running on Eclipse. So before you run the application, you need to check on source main resources. You need to check the application -dev.properties. In here you are going to set up the database connection, which is an SQL server. It's hosted on SQL server, so this is my database name, Bolo SQL, and the username for the server admin in the database and the password. So for Windows you need to go to, let me check, so you need to check for SQL server. You go to Microsoft, you try the SQL Server 2017, and you can use the developer version. So you install this on Windows, and then you go to SSMS, that's the so it's SSMS, that's the SQL Service Management Studio. So you go to the Microsoft doc and you go download SQL Server Management Studio, and you can download whatever version they have there. So that's for Windows. If you have a Mac like the one I'm explaining right now, you know the SQL Server is from Windows, so for installing on Mac you need to do it through Docker. So I will put this on the comment on the video, how to install SQL Server on Mac. So you follow this, pretty much straightforward, it's pretty easy. So in here you install in here you download the SQL Server for Linux. In here you install it. You will see that you put the password for the server admin. You use the server admin account, and you use the password for the server admin. You can put anything in here. This one have to match with this in here. Username, SA, and password, the password that you put in here. In Windows you need to go to login on the server. Let me go back. In Windows you need to go to the Server Management Studio and go to login and create the login for that user, for the server admin, and put the password that you will put on here on the file, the application dev.properties. So let me go back. So we were installing on Mac the SQL Server. So here you will see everything explained. Then you can check on any terminal. So you can see I have my server running, my SQL server running. You can see it here too on the icon. You can connect to you can install the SQL CLI, so you can use regular command for connecting to the server and drop the database or create a database like this. SQL, the user SA, the password really strong, password 123. You see I'm connected. So let me say, so I am connected to the SQL server. You can see here Microsoft SQL Server 2017, the one that we need. So you have Visual Studio with the application. For the front end, you have Eclipse with a Spring Tools install or IntelliJ, and you have to go to the server SQL Server Management Studio and create a database. The database need to be called whatever you put in here. So Bolo SQL, the first time that you run the application, the API will check for this database on the server, and then it will populate all the tables on the database. So let me show you right now. I use this client in Mac to. This is the similar to SQL Server Management Studio. So you will find here, if you have a Mac, at the end that you have several clients you can use. I'm using this DBV. So if you see, I have the database Bolo SQL with all the tables. So I will drop this database. Let me close this, and I will create the database from scratch. So the database is not there. Let me show you. So I got an error. I cannot open the database that I have the connection set up because it's not there. It doesn't exist. So let me close again. Let me create the database. Remember to put the same name that you put on the application dev.properties in here. If you see, I have my set of configuration, and my team Jackie have the other set of configuration we have set from the past team. So I will use Bolo SQL for creating my database name. So it's created. Let me check in my client for managing the SQL server. Okay, this time the database is in there, it's in here, but it's empty. There are no tables in the database. So you can use either Eclipse or you can use IntelliJ. So I like IntelliJ. I will show the rest on IntelliJ. Let me show you this file because I will populate some info on the database before. So you go to source main Java Bolo security, and you see the class, the setup data loader. So you will get familiarized with this from time to time. So let me check here. In here we are going to create some users. If you see, I'm creating a root. I'm putting my email from FIU. I'm putting root and a password. So you can change this before you start your API the first time. I create a supervisor. I put the username supervisor, same password. I put another email, personal email. I create an admin. Username is admin, password same. and I use another personal email, and I create an officer, same password and another personal email. So you will see that you have different tiers, 4 tiers to be exact. You have the officer, supervisor, admin, and root. So I create this before we if the database doesn't exist, it check if the user doesn't exist, it created, and I create the first agency. You see I put some names here, I put some domain. You can modify this later. So let's run the project for the API. So I go here, I run it. You will see a Spring running. So if you had time, you will see that it create the tables. You see create tables, then alter the tables. So it create the whole database. You need to see at the end that the application started in whatever time you have here, that the Tomcat server started in this port 8091 that is set up in the application properties server port. So this means that the API is running. Let's go back and check the tables here. So you see that you have agency, Bolo, so you have all the model for this product. And if you go to Bolo user and you open this table, you will see that we create the 4 users, the root, the officer, the supervisor, the admin. If you go to agency and open the table, you will see that we create the first agency. So that's the API running. Then you go to Visual Studio Code, and then you run the you need to navigate to the whatever you have, the application. So in here you have Angular CLI, which is the front end, and REST API. So we have to be on the Angular CLI. So from here we do ng serve, and we can put the -o to open the browser. So that's running. If you see, we run on localhost on the port 4200. So it's running there. It run. So you can use any browser, Safari, or if you prefer, you can use Chrome, which is better for debugging. So you put localhost like this. And you go to logout. So this is your login screen. You can use root, and the password you put in here, and you're logged. So if you go to admin, agency management, you see the agency that we load in the setup data loader. If you go to user management, you will see the user that we put in there. So if you go to the agency management, you need to edit and put a logo image. For example, we have some sample here, logo, and you put the shield from Pinecrest. You save this, that update the database. You can see that here in the console if you are doing in IntelliJ or if you are doing in Eclipse. So this is your application running. You can try to add now some bolos. Let me try to do that. So before you do that, you need to create some categories. So you go back to admin, you go to Bolo category management, and you create maybe 1 or 2 categories. So add some, maybe property, then you go back and you create a Bolo. Then you will see the categories here. You can put an image. And then you save it. So if you see this, it's trying to send the email to the user that is creating the Bolo. So the Bolo is created there. You can check it on the database. Let me see, that's a Bolo. Okay, you see the Bolo is creating there. And for the email, you need to check that is also in here. We are using a Google SMTP server to send the emails, and we are using this account. If you lost access to this account or something happened, you can create a new account to use it as a SMTP server relay, and it should send to the root email. Let me check here. It's in here. So you see, this is the one that I just created. It was sent to the email that Ruth has on the, let me show you here, or in the database. So that's a user and that's root. Okay, so that's the email for root. So that's the application running. You will see what is the status of the application. Any doubt you have, I will let my contact to Jason and Fran, and you can ask me over WhatsApp or my email, and I will happy to help you with anything. Okay, thank you.